Hi everyone, my name's Angharad and I'm an illustrator. So today I'm going to be taking a tutorial called Walking with Line. So basically I've been for a walk around Nillumbik. I've collected some leaves and some seed pods and a few other bits and pieces that have caught my eye. And I'm going to be showing you how to set up a still life with what you've collected and how to draw a line drawing. So today we're going to be using quite simple materials just so that you can follow along at home quite easily. So basically they are my favourite materials that we'll be using. So I've got a couple of fine liners. So these fine liners I just get from Officeworks. I really like the 0.7 fine liner and just some office paper. So just what you get a ream of. There's a couple of reasons why I do like these materials. So basically office paper because then you don't have to be precious with your drawing. So today we're just going to be getting comfortable with it and having some fun drawing them. So it's good to not feel any pressure when you're drawing. If you don't like it, you can just recycle it. And it's also really good to scan. So if you're wanting to scan your drawing afterwards to put up on the computer or scan on your phone, then this paper is really good for that. So basically walking around Nillumbik is a lovely thing to do, so this drawing is inspired by that. So it's really good when you're on a walk to be able to look out for things that catch your eye. So basically the things I've got have caught my eye because of the beautiful colours or the interesting shapes. So they're kind of the key elements for a still life when you are looking for things to collect. So it's really good to have the varying shapes. Today we will be working in black and white, but the colour you can still draw because of the patterns that the variations of the colour are creating. So yeah, let's get started. So before we begin drawing our still life, we're going to start off with some warm-up drawings. So basically this is just to loosen up. So what you create doesn't matter because it's just a warm-up drawing. So I've picked this leaf, which I'm going to start off with. So it's really important to be looking at the shape. So to do a warm-up drawing, sometimes it's fun to try different ways of drawing. So with this one, we're going to draw by just looking at the leaf and not looking at the paper. So then it loosens you up and makes you a bit freer to be able to draw. So I'll start off just with this one. So we're just going to look at the leaf and not look at the paper. It's quite hard to not be tempted to look at what you're drawing. And what we're trying to do is draw with quite a strong line. So drawing with a strong line, it can add interest to the drawing because it creates quirks and wobbles in the line. And it also makes for stronger shapes, which is quite important. So I'm just trying hard to not look at what I'm drawing and not be precious with the composition. So it's kind of like taking your line for a walk, just for a wander across the page, and to be really loose. I think I've added in a few extra leaves. Add the details. Beautiful. So as you can see, I didn't look at what I was drawing. It is quite wobbly and quirky, but creates such interesting shapes and really interesting line work. So that's always a really good warm-up to do. So now what we're going to do is pick one of the objects, one of the leaves that we've collected, one of the branches, and we're just going to focus on drawing one of them, and then we'll bring them together to create a more whole still life. So it's quite nice collecting dry leaves because of the shapes that they can create. So the curl in the leaves can create quite a difficult shape to draw. Something really interesting to think about when you're drawing like this is to not draw what you're seeing. So you know that this is a leaf, so immediately it's quite easy to just draw what you think a leaf looks like. But instead today what we're going to be doing is drawing exactly what you can see. So that's not a typical leaf shape. So it's really important to look at exactly what is in front of you rather than what you want to see, which will create a more realistic kind of drawing. So when you start your drawing, it's quite nice to do something big. So don't work on a little area of your page. It's nice so that you can add detail and that you're not feeling restricted. So that's kind of so why we did the warm-up drawing, so it loosened us up so we can work quite big. So it is nice to work in black and white, because if something's going to work in black and white, you can then add colour to it later on, so you know that it is going to work. So what we're looking for is we're looking at the shapes that it creates. So here you can see kind of like a wobbled semicircle. So we're going to look at the shape that it's making, and then by doing that you can see the line. So remember to keep the line really strong. As the stronger the line is, the more confident the drawing will be. Yeah, so as I was saying before, you can add colour after this, but if you get the composition working well in black and white, then it will work in colour as well. So as you can see, it's kind of like a curve, quite a subtle curve in that line, so it's really important to look at that angle to make sure that you are capturing all of the parts in the leaf. And we'll just curve around. It's nice to do it in one big motion. Like so. So these leaves are beautiful. They've got little spots where the colour changes, so it's nice to add them in. It can be fun using a fine liner because you can add in like where the shadows are just by doing hatching, or you can do some shading in with the fine liner as well. So it is a very simple pen. If you don't have a pen like this, you can just use a black biro. I think it's quite nice to use black rather than blue, just because black's a very confident colour and it's very strong line drawing that we're doing. So it's nice to keep that variation. So just adding in the bits where the colour is changing. And if you've started and you don't like what you're doing, don't feel like you're trapped, no one has to see it, doesn't matter. You just put that piece of paper aside and you just get another piece of paper. So don't feel trapped by what you've started. So again, that's quite an unusual shape. So it's just good to identify the shape. So it's a bit of an oval, quite squished in the middle there. So you can see an oval, quite squished. So what we're doing is identifying that shape and then going around the outside, just to make sure that the leaf does still have body to it. There's a bit of hatching here. So if you like, afterwards, once you've got your black and white drawing, you can use coloured pencil to add some colour if that's what you like. But personally, I like black and white. So remember, we're not looking at a leaf, instead we're looking at the shapes that the leaf is creating. So where I am now, the lighting's creating quite beautiful shadows, specifically like just underneath the leaf. So it's quite fun to add depth to the drawing by shading that in. So you might have noticed at the start we didn't go in with pencil first. So I do have a pencil here, but it's quite nice to just go straight in with fine liner. It can be risky if you don't feel confident, but if you use a pencil, it can make you a bit more hesitant. You can rub it out, which means that you can go backwards on your mistakes. The nice thing with fine liner is that your mistake is on the page, so it kind of creates like a history in the drawing. So say I got this angle a bit off, it's quite nice to just correct it to what's right. And then it kind of creates an interesting layer, so your mistakes can actually kind of make the drawing more interesting. So rather than erasing it and getting rid of it, it's building the drawing. So just add some more shadow. And then this leaf down here. So you'll begin to notice after you start doing this that every time you go for a walk, it'll be hard not to pick up new things to collect and new things to draw. It's quite fun. So there's some stem. So it doesn't matter how long it takes you, you'll know when you're finished, you'll be happy with how it looks when it's done. These drawings, they're not meant to take forever, like they're not tonal drawings, so don't spend too long on it. But it's nice to keep adding detail until you're happy with it. Cool, so I'm pretty happy with that one. It's just a nice still life of a leaf. Now you could go over that in watercolour paint if you like, or you can go over it in coloured pencil to add some colour, but I really like how it's black and white. So now you can use your phone to scan that in. So generally I use Cam Scanner, which is just a free app, and then it makes it digital so you can pop it up to share with people. So you can have a look at it there. Cool, alright, so now we're going to start on the next drawing. Now that we've done the warm-up activity and we've got our single leaf, now we're going to set up a still life. So to set up a still life, it's important to consider a few different things. So shape is one thing. So here we've got quite a sharp leaf with sharp little seed pods. We've got some rounded leaves, got some really cool fungi, which creates quite a circular shape, quite round. And we've got a few other individual bits and pieces which will add interest and variation. So when you're setting it up, it's important to consider all those things to create an interesting composition. So when we just drew the single leaf, that leaf creates its own composition so it can sit quite well on the page. But now that we're mucking around with it, it's important to think about all these different things. We've got a stick here as well. So it's kind of fun to just collect all of the different bits and pieces that catch your eye. So I'll just set them up. Borrow a little box. So it can be good to add different height into the picture. So we're going to do that by just using a box. You can just use a cereal box or like anything from around the house, just to add different height and different levels. in the picture, which will help play with interesting angles and shapes. So just get it balancing quite nicely. Now before, when I was drawing, I was kind of picking up the leaf and everything to show you what it was looking like, but this time, once it's there, just so that it helps keep everything stable. Cool. So I'll just show you what that looks like. So something like that, lots of different elements to look at, some round shapes, sharper edges, small, big, different heights, different angles, it's all happening. Cool, so that's pointed like that. So you can either start your page portrait or landscape. I'd say this still life will sit better on a landscape kind of page because of the shape of the box that I've just picked up. So yeah, when you begin your drawing, kind of just make sure that it's going to fit on your page. It's okay if it doesn't, because it can create interest if you just zoom up on a certain part. So you can choose to just zoom up on this interesting area here, or you can zoom right out and get the background, which can be really interesting, like getting everything from the windowsill up to the roof in the background. Can create like a bit more of a story in the still life, so it adds context. Yeah, so let's get going. You can kind of start from whichever place you like. So like if you're drawing a person, I'll always start at the hair. I don't know why, it just works for me. And so with a drawing like this, just pick somewhere that attracts your eye, that's a shape that you feel confident to start with. So I wouldn't pick the smallest seed pod to start your drawing, because it'll be hard to build context around that, and then you'll probably run out of space. So I'm going to start at the top of the leaf here, and then we'll begin from there. So remember, long curving lines, trying to take your pen off the page as least as possible. Just be confident with the angles, so don't overthink it. And it's really important to remember what you're seeing. So here, this leaf, all I can see is basically one line to a tiny point. So it's making a shape like that, even though the leaf is quite round. So you might think, oh gee, putting one line for that whole leaf looks a bit wrong. But actually, if that's what you see, it's important to just put what you see and not to think about it too much. See, I'm going to run out of space here. And you know what? That's alright, because I'll show you how we can fix that. I always run out of space. It's easy to get lost in the line. So I'm moving up. When you're drawing a still life, it's really important to look at the points of intersection. So a point of intersection would be where that leaf meets the fungi. So although they're not touching, it's where the line is going to intersect. So by looking at something like that, that makes it easier to be able to get the angles right. So I'm about to hit a point of intersection where the leaf is meeting where the twig is. So we'll just add that one in. Add in all of the little bits that you can see, all of the detail. So this branch is a bit spotty, add some spots. All those little details are really fun to add. And the veins in the leaf, can pop them in. So of course you can do still life with kind of anything around the house. It doesn't have to be things from nature, because these shapes, natural shapes, are quite hard to draw traditionally. So even if you're just doing a still life with pots, pans and cereal boxes, then that's easy because it'll be a good place to start to get the geometric shapes right. So I'm about to hit another point of intersection where the leaf meets the seed pods. So we'll keep going with them. So because there is a lot to take in here, you can take a bit longer on this drawing. You could spend all day drawing something like this. Just follow the lines, taking the line for a walk right across the whole composition. If you don't like what you're drawing, it's good to keep going because the drawing can really change as you keep adding to it. And if you still don't like it, no one has to see it, so it's fine. So keep going. So I'll just show you what I've gone so far. So you can see I've gone right over for a walk, right up from there and over across. So we'll keep adding in the detail here before we move down to what's happening down there. So that's easier to see like that. That's where we're up to. So we'll keep going. So some really interesting shapes happening here. And remember, once you've got the shape in, it can be quite nice to add in the little bits that are on the leaves, the little dots and markings. So while you're drawing your still life, it can be good to think about where your eye is drawn to. So it can be easy to pay a lot of attention to certain areas that you typically look at more often. So it can be nice to just zoom in and focus on little parts that add little details to the picture. And then if you really like what you draw, you can transfer it onto some nicer paper, trace it on, or you can keep the still life there and then do it on nicer paper. But yeah, while we're just mucking around, it's nice to not feel any pressure. So I've run out of room here, getting carried away. Oh no, so if this happens to you, just get another piece of paper and you can tape them up later. So it makes your drawing a bit bigger, because it's better to draw big than to restrict your drawing because of the size of the paper. So we can just, I've moved it, we can just continue the drawing on from here. So there's an intersection where the two branches are meeting, so it's kind of creating a V angle. So really just commit to the lines you're drawing, and like I said earlier, just correct right over the top of them. If you're not happy with the angle you've drawn, you just go straight over the top with the correct angle, and it adds a really nice history to the drawing. Add in any markings. So now we'll get, oh, lucky I haven't drawn them yet. We'll start this little area of seed pods here. So it's really nice to focus on one bit at a time, just to get the shapes in, and then you can go back and add in any detail. Some hatching. So a nice way to add shadow and tone to the drawing without colouring in is just doing some cross hatching or some spots. Move on to the fungi. So some crazy patterns in that. So we'll just focus on this little area. That's happening. In the vein. Just match the paper up. And then add in this leaf where the stick meets it. So we have chosen a lot of different things to draw. If you're wanting to make it a bit easier, you can just choose less things, so maybe just a couple of leaves or a couple of sticks, but it does create quite an interesting drawing when there's lots of things happening. So here I'm just drawing, the colour is changing on the leaf, so it's quite nice to really look at that and focus in on the really cool shapes that the change in colour is making. And it can be fun to translate colour into line just by looking at the shapes that the colour is making. Finish off this stick. You could just keep adding things forever, really. There's a lot to draw. But because we're focusing on shape and line, you can kind of just keep going until you're happy with it. So I think I'm missing a few leaves down here near the seed pod. You can draw in the box if you want. I don't think I will, because what we've got happening is kind of cool. I think the box will make something quite fluid. It'll turn it into something a bit geometric. But if your drawing is looking not as fluid, then that's fine, you can add the box in. I think I'm happy with the shape this has made. The fun part about being able to scan this in on your phone is that then you can colour it in digitally, you can edit it online, and it makes the drawing, the line, yeah, it's just nice. You can add colour online using different programs and apps. So it really does change the drawing later on. Got some more seed pods I've missed. So as you can see, we really are taking the line for a walk right across the page. Sometimes you'll, like just now I've looked up and I've realised, oh, I've left out a few seed pods, so you can just kind of add them in again as you notice them. Whoa. Just check over, see what else is there. Beautiful, I think I'm happy with that. I could just sit here and keep adding and adding and adding, so it's good to say stop. Otherwise we'll be here for hours. So I'll show you what I've drawn. So basically now you could just sticky tape them together and pop it up on the wall as a reference picture, or if you liked the composition, you can then make changes to it. It's just a good place to start, a good starting point. So that's your still life. Kind of reflects the messiness of the bush, because all those elements together, there's a lot of shape and line happening. We've got our warm-up drawing, which is like the wonky kind of version by not looking. And then we've got our single still life, where the little branch itself has made its own composition, which is quite simple. So yeah, thank you for joining Walking with Line tutorial today. My name is Angharad. I do recommend that you follow Nillumbik on Facebook.